Oh, hello there. Welcome back. I've been working on something while we've been away. I call it writer's block. You can't see writer's block because you can't see where I'm pointing at, but just just come a little closer. Come take a look at this. All right. So, what do I mean by writer's block? Well, first of all, if you haven't heard the term, you're very fortunate because it's going to become the bane of your existence. I'm just kidding. That's not. But it is a common term that most people or individuals that are writing seek out to reference when they're running into some problem with their story, like a conflict. And I don't mean like the characters are running into a conflict in the story. No, no. I mean the literal writer is having a hell of a time trying to resolve an issue in continuity, some part of structure, maybe some character development. Who knows? But, anyways, some glorious individual out there thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call it writer's block. And it took off like wildfire. And so, if you think about that conflict, what happens is you're writing, merrily along, and then basically, bam, you wily coyote into some type of conflict or some type of challenge that you don't feel like you can overcome. And it stops you from writing and disrupts your continuity. And as a result, maybe you become discouraged and are almost at the point of no longer wanting to write. And if that's the case, pump the brakes. Let me tell you that. What you can do is think about it from a different viewpoint. Think less of this mental structure approach or like this block idea, and more just simply structure and what we mean by structure. And that's what I really had a realization about that has really stopped this altogether for me. But I didn't start this way. And so I will show you with some fancy dancy drawings I did. Not so fancy, but still pretty good. So if you think about it, some people will use the analogy that stories are like puzzles. And to some degree, I agree with them. I think they are like puzzles. You have to think about different pieces and they have different aspects to them, and it's really the responsibility of the writer to figure out how they fit together, and sometimes the reader too. Now, if you're like me though, and you have somewhat of a logical brain that really enjoys sequences like one, ooh, that's way too heavy of a line. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and thinks that these should constructively always fit together in this order. Well, my friends, let me tell you, puzzle building is going to become very, very challenging for you in the future. I'm just going to erase those out. And so as you can think about this idea of, logical formation, puzzles don't work like that. And in my case, I almost feel like stories don't work like that, even though one of the biggest things that got me started in proper structure was the hamburger metaphor or analogy. And so basically, if you've never seen this before, it's kind of like one of the key instrumental pieces that I feel like they teach to kids in school just to terrorize them. Just kidding. It's partially because it's probably done out of goodwill. And it starts with this idea that, first of all, you have a bun, which is like the start to your story or your content. And then each successive layer, lettuce, tomatoes, onion, whatever you like to put on there, avocado, my personal favorite, is additional layer and detail. And that detail eventually builds in towards getting to the bun. And the bun is like the middle of the story. It's like the crux, the conflict, right? It's when basically everything's coming together. And then finally, you layer in maybe some extra lettuce towards the end. And then finally, another bun. Now, as delicious as this idea appears to be, let me tell you, it really had a profound impact on me because I thought about it and I was like, gosh, these teachers are geniuses. There's no way you could randomly assemble a hamburger in midair. By gravity, by Newton's law, we just simply cannot do this, right? It has to form in the structured process. Well, after many, 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 many years of writing like this, I found that I wasn't so much good at this structure. And, I'd say my teachers were also very supportive of the fact that I wasn't that good at that writing. Devil horns included, people. Maybe not so much of the wrinkles, though. But anyways, to my horror, I realized that what I thought was a very structural process for me in this writing was not going to work out. It just was floundering, and so was I. And I floundered so bad that I ended up actually not writing anymore. After I wrapped up school and doing these types of like assignments and any type of creative assignments, I just figured that's enough. I don't need to put myself through any more pain from this standpoint. And here's one of the lessons I would like to pass along to everybody. So lean in close to your speakers if you want to. Time flies. Time flies no matter what. If you write, if you don't write, time still flies. And so do not stop writing. If you keep at writing and keep working through this process and keep thinking about your own analogies and your own examples and understanding how you work as a writer, you will hone your craft. You will become better at what you do, and you will find that what you create every successive day, therefore after, gets a little and a little and a little better. And for me, I absolutely didn't follow my own advice, and so I just kind of stopped writing and started doing other things. And one day I was sitting down and building a puzzle, to my horror, with my wife, and I watched how she was building the puzzle. And this is more of how like I participate in puzzles. I actually don't do the puzzles. I just kind of sit back and watch people do the puzzles. I know it's a little weird, but I'm not really good at puzzles, as we saw with that whole sequential thing. But her approach was fascinating. What she did is every time she took up a puzzle piece, it found its way onto the board per se. It never went back into like the big box or like the pile of puzzle pieces. Every piece went somewhere. But they didn't just go anywhere. They went into these like little groups. And these groups were like same consistencies. So if there's the same colors, they went there. The same contrast, they went there. Maybe like a key part of an animal or a house or a structure, whatever, it went there. And eventually they formed like these little themes. Like there would be a color theme over here, and there would be, maybe a texture theme over here, and maybe a shading or like a lighting theme over here. And for me, it was this weird realization that the reason why she liked puzzles is because she's an absolute genius, for the fact that she's come up with this process, and that she never wastes resources. And what I mean by that is, when she's putting these puzzle pieces in, she's making use of her time and her effort. Whereas if you think about what I would do, I would pick up a puzzle piece, look at it, and be like, nope, that doesn't work, and put it back in the puzzle. And after a while, that just becomes very discouraging. You don't want to keep at it anymore. But that was the connection between this idea of how she's building puzzles and how structure works in stories. And what I'd been realizing is I had been building hamburgers all my life, when in reality, I should have been creating little puzzle islands. I know, what a weird analogy we're going on, but we're going to follow this through. And so this is when I had my big epiphany. I was like, what? This is even feasible? Like, this is going to be a viable approach to potentially writing? And so I tried it. I sat down and I started writing anything that came to mind for great ideas that I felt good about. And I was like, ooh, that sounds good as a character, or that plot piece seems really interesting, or, this villain, oh man, this villain, like the way he looks and how he acts and like how he behaves, it's so awesome. And so I started forming them into their own little critical, like little islands. And what I realized is if you keep working at those islands and keep looking at the content collectively, like almost like this view of like looking over all these little islands, you start to see like subtle connections that could work. And you're like, oh yeah, maybe this character was actually in that space with the villain, but they didn't know about it. And that leads to this plot area. And there's the conflict. And oh my gosh, you come to this realization that you're like, there it is. That's the connection I needed. And so this has been absolutely instrumental to my writing for two reasons. One, everything that I write makes its way onto the page, which is wonderful. Let me tell you, you feel extremely rewarded by the fact that you're like, ooh, this is going to work. And number two, you slowly see the growth of your ideas, like the accumulation process of your ideas coming together, and the fact that this process can be beneficial for how you work through it. And so if you are not a hamburger writer and a hamburger builder, maybe you're a puzzle island creator? I don't know, potentially. So my recommendation is, if you're stuck and you feel like someone said, oh, you've got writer's block, throw that idea away and jump into this idea and give it a go and see if it works for you and if it helps you deliver more content and better content and more richer, robust stories. And if you do find that it is helping you, please drop a comment in the section below. I would love to hear back from everybody and get more feedback on this. As always, I am honing my craft, and hopefully you are too. Have yourself a great day, people.